go outside. The snow is falling down and every child is having so much fun. The snowman is twice the size as me with a smile.
This is an annual video that I make every year. And I'm not gonna lie, I've struggled to pick the best of 2024. I actually only have 4 books and I think every single one of them has a caveat. I've only had 1 5-star read this year. It's just not, I don't know what's happened. I'm nowhere near hitting my reading goal again as well. It's just not been a good year for books again. I think I need a revamp in the books that I'm picking. I feel like I need to maybe go back into popular books as well. Don't get me wrong, the majority of these are popular, but I think I need to try some popular books again to try and get back into my groove of things. I feel like I'm out of my slump, but the books haven't been great this year. We are gonna go through my 4 favourite reads of the year. Now, like I say, there are caveats to them, so we're going to chat about them a little bit. For a more kind of like fleeting review, I do my entire book year in review after Christmas, so make sure you subscribe if you're interested in seeing that, and then I'll go through some of the worst of the year as well. But these are going to be a bit more in depth, so there might be spoilers, there might not be, so feel free to skip a book if you are wanting to read it. I'll try not to give big spoilers away, but I'm going to chat about them a little bit. Right, what order should we go in? Let's get my star rating up for all of them, and we'll go from lowest to highest. I use Storygraph. Storygraph is an alternative to Goodreads. It is not owned by Amazon, which is a big plus, and it's also Black female owned, so it's a brilliant app to support. It also has some really cool stats, and it does Wrapped, so I'm excited for my Wrapped this year, even though, like I say, I haven't really read much. That is a 4, that's a 4.5, that's a 5, and that's a 4.25, so amazing. We can go from lowest to highest. Okay, first up, and probably the most popular book on here, is The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. So you might have seen this one hopping about on social media. It's a very popular book. It is going to be a TV series or a movie. It's going to be one of them. And that is my main reason for picking it up. I get major FOMO. I don't like not reading a book before a movie comes out because I hate that. I am not somebody who can read the book after it comes out. I'm just like, there's no point. I know what's going to happen. So I like being able to read them before they come out. So that was why I did this, because I am a thriller girly. That's my genre. So when there's a really popular thriller and a movie coming out of it, I need to read it first. So that is the only reason I picked this up. I didn't have high hopes because all of the popular thrillers I have read, I've actually not enjoyed that much. So if we're talking like The Silent Patient, didn't really enjoy it. Thought the twist wasn't very good. The Hunting Party, did not enjoy that. Thought it was really boring. Girl on a Train, haven't read that. Read all the other Gillian Flynn books, but haven't read Girl on the Train. Is it Girl on the Train? No, Gone Girl. Gone Girl, haven't read it. Read all the other Gillian Flynn books, love the other ones, just haven't read Gone Girl because I'd watched the movie first. So when I hear there's a popular thriller, I'm just like, it's not going to be like twisty-turny enough for me, because the majority of ones that get popular are like for people who don't read thrillers. So I didn't have the highest expectations of this. And also, going into it, reading it, the first half of the book, I was still in that mindset. I was very much like, why are you doing this? So this is like not full-on spoiler, but a little bit of a spoiler. It's very, like, you can see the toxicity of the situation that the person is in. You can like be like, girl, why are you there? And I was just like, I knew there was I kind of guessed the twist, but I knew there was like a twist coming, but at the same time I was like, this is just stressful to read. Like, it's not fun to read because you are literally just like, girl, leave. This wouldn't happen in real life. They'd be gone. You wouldn't be staying there. But she does, but like the second half of this book, much better. And then obviously it's a thriller. There are multiple twists in this. One of the twists, did not expect. And that is rare for me. I do guess plots quite regularly. So the twist that I didn't guess, stunning, lovely, very, very satisfying. I find a lot of thriller books, love them, good, but some of the twists aren't satisfying. Like the stereotypical trope of where it's like, I don't know, let's do the proper stereotypical trope. So evil husband and woman trying to get out. At the end, when the evil husband's like dead, but then, oh my god, he's not actually dead and he's gonna plot a revenge on her. Hate that. Hate it. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in this book, because like I say, no spoilers, but that type of thing where it's like, Okay, but this was satisfying. I enjoyed this at the end. If you are thinking about reading this, I'd say go into it knowing as little as possible. Like, just go into it little as possible. The only thing that I knew was Sydney Sweeney has been cast to play the main person. And I think it's Amanda Seyfried who's going to play Nina, who is the other main woman in this. And then it's Glenn Powell going to be the man. I'm not entirely sure. I did just see yesterday who's been cast to play Enzo, which is the other male lead. But, and this is going to be the caveat for this, the amount of fat phobia in this book, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And I have actually read the second book of this now, and the fat phobia just goes straight back into the next one. In this one, the fat phobia is coming from the main antagonist, so Sydney Sweeney, aka Millie. Millie is the main lead. The fat phobia that Millie has towards Nina in this book was horrible, and then going into the next one, the like protagonist in that one has it. So it's not like it's a character building thing. There's just fat phobia everywhere, and it's just like, it's not needed. It doesn't add anything to the story. In this one, it adds a tiny bit, but I wouldn't say it's necessary for the plot whatsoever. I am very hopeful that they are going to take it out for the movie, because they've casted Amanda Seyfried, and Amanda Seyfried is not fat in any way, sense or form. She is a skinny girl. So I'm hoping that that means they're just taking the fat phobia out, because I honestly think if the fat phobia that was in here was put into a movie, the movie would probably get cancelled, because it is rife. So that's the caveat for this. And there's another caveat and another one that's of a similar vein. If that's a deal breaker for you, that is completely okay. That is also like a deal breaker for me. I don't think I'm going to read the third one, because I don't want to read another book full of fat phobia. I also feel a bit funny promoting it when it does have so much fat phobia, but this isn't me being like, read the book. It's just me being like, this was one of my favourite books of the year. I'm going to tell you there's fat phobia in it. Don't read it if you don't want it, because I get it. Wait for the movie, because I feel like the movie is probably going to take all of that out. But I was impressed with the twist in this one, and the second half of the book. The first half of the book, I just found a little bit annoying. Okay, next up. This one doesn't really have any caveats, but Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. She's just so pretty. Look at her. Look at her. Oh, she's beautiful. She's a thick girl though. She's thick. So this is the prequel to A Priory of the Orange Tree. I know this isn't everybody's favourite, and I get it. This wasn't a 5-star read. This was a 4.25 star read for me. The points that I enjoy about it were the world building, lovely. I find that it's a good level of descriptive, but not too descriptive. So if we're going in kind of like fantasy authors, George R. Martin, far too descriptive. You learn too much about that world when in the books, you don't need it. Whereas this is a good amount of descriptive. There are points where it sometimes feels a little bit like I have no idea what's going on, because there isn't description enough. I also feel like maybe, because in this book, what should we call it? Appendices. We have maps. We have 2 pages of map there, 2 pages of map there, and that page of map. I don't understand these maps. I couldn't, when I looked through trying to find places that it was being talked about, I haven't got a clue. I couldn't follow these maps. And then at the back we have the persons of the tale, which is, the way it is presented is literally just like this. I struggle with that. I think I'd prefer if there was a family tree at the back, which I know would be really, really hard. Oh my god, I've just found a timeline as well. This is the thing. What is it with books and their appendices being at the back? I don't like going at the back, because sometimes books go all the way at the back, and then if I flip to the last page, I've like spoiled it for me. So sometimes I'll get at the back and there'll be stuff there and I'll be like, that would have been useful at the beginning. I am going to point out that I was just silly, because I have just noticed there's a contents page at the beginning of this book and I just apparently ignored it. But I mean, there is a timeline, but there's a lot of names that are similar in this book. It is very stereotypical fantasy. The names are the bit that get you. I had no idea that was there. I feel like I'm gonna have to reread this timeline now just to understand it a bit better. That would have been useful. Never mind, that was user error. It's still beautiful. I think if you're into fantasy, this is a great book. If you're not into fantasy, it's probably not going to be for you, because it's quite complicated. And I feel like with other books, I am very much there for the story. With this, I'm here for the experience, and it was the same with Priory. I'm not really there to know what happens in the story. I'm just there for the experience of reading the book and being in that world and knowing what happens. I feel like this one had the very same arch as Priory did for me, where at the end I was a bit like, okay, okay. And I felt like it could have gone on for longer, but I did really enjoy this one. I think she's beautiful. I love the inclusivity of these books. I think these are gold standard for inclusivity, and everybody should read them to learn how to write inclusively because they're just beautiful. Okay, moving on. This is another one that I do feel a little bit funny about putting on because of the caveat, but I'm going to tell you about it first and then I'll tell you the caveat. And that is the Turnglass. You might have seen this in a haul, because I mean you've seen all of these in a haul. This is by Gareth Rubin, and it is basically, what's it called? Tete Besh? Yeah, Tete Besh. And it basically is a book split into 2 parts, printed back to back and head to foot. So there's 2 books in this essentially. Where's the split? There you go. They are the 2 books. They are related. And that's how I went into this book. I knew that one book was set in 1880s and one book is set in 1930. This is I wouldn't call it a thriller, it's a mystery book, 2 mystery books, and they interlink. I had a look online to have a look at the correct way to read it, and it was basically do whatever you want, but the optimum way to read it is to do chapter 1, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 3. I didn't want to do that, and I'm glad I didn't. I did 1880s to 1930s just because I'm not the biggest fan of prequel books, so I was like, I'll read it in the way that I'd consume other like media if I could. And I really did enjoy reading this. I do feel like they were both a little bit cut short, underdeveloped. I feel like they both could have been longer, had a little bit more depth to them, but the mystery kind of reading it was good. It kind of felt like a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, and it was strange because the 1880s was set in the UK and then the 1930s for the majority of it was set in America, so it felt very different going from the 1880s side to the 1930s side. It felt very, very different, but it was quite fun doing it in that way, and it was quite fun having the mystery of how they linked because it's not explicit until the very end of the book. So if you are going to read this, I would definitely recommend doing 1880s to 1930s. The 1880s side was very much like classical. It felt like you were reading like a Victorian book. And then the 1930s was more kind of like Hollywood mystery vibes. Very easy to follow, quite well written, but, and I'm going to come on to my caveat. In the 1880s side, fine. In the 1930s side, there are a few words used that shouldn't have been used, and I don't understand why they're in there. They are slurs for 2 different minority groups, and they are not relevant to the story whatsoever. So the first one is used quite early on, and they are referring to black people because they are in 1930s Hollywood, but it's so bizarre because they talk about the main character is a man who has came to Hollywood, and he is talking about how Hollywood treats black people just in passing, and then he's talking to somebody else about something unrelated, and then that other person uses this slur and they talk, well, they don't talk, he kind of like he's like, oh, I don't know why it's been said, and then that's it. Black people aren't in the book for the rest of it. I have no idea why the author wanted that in there. I understand acknowledging the racist problems of the time because that is so important, it is. But why then use a racist slur and then not include black people in the book? I do not understand it. And then also later on in the book, there is a slur for travellers, and that is more into the story, but it wasn't needed at all. Like, it didn't add anything to the story whatsoever. I can't tell you why it's used without giving a spoiler to it, but it's so bizarre, and honestly I think this would have been my favourite book of the year if it didn't have those things in, because it just feels so unnecessary, and we don't need them. Like, that made me not enjoy this book. This would have been top of the year, but it's not anymore because I just don't understand why there's racist slurs in there. I completely understand it if you're telling a story in relation to the time and drawing attention to how badly people were treated back then, but it didn't do that. So it was a bit disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. It is one of the favourites because I wanted to put it in here because honestly I struggled with trying to find books for this year, and I did really enjoy the story until that happened. So I wouldn't say buy it because of the slurs, but it was one of my favourite stories of this year. Let's move on. Let's stop talking about it. And next is my only 5-star read of the year, and that is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. If you are a subscriber to the channel, you will know I have a very love-hate relationship with Lisa Jewell. I either adore her books, one of my favourite books of all time, or I don't rate it at all. And this was, fortunately, a 5-star read. My favourite of hers is The Family Upstairs. I also read The Family Remains this year. You'll have to watch the other video to see what I thought of that. But this felt similar to The Family Upstairs. Like, I really liked the storytelling and I looked forward to reading this. That's kind of how I rate my books, is how much I'm enjoying that experience. It's kind of not how well they're written, it's more like how much I enjoy it. And this, I was looking forward to go to bed so I can read this book. I found it quite engrossing. The basic premise of this book, how do they describe it? Let me read the blurb. Maybe I should have done that for all of them. Alex Summer, Josie Fair, two very different women who meet by chance in a restaurant and discover they are birthday twins. A few days later, they meet again. Alex is a podcaster and Josie persuades her to feature her on her new series. She is, she tells Alex, on the cusp of great changes in her life. Alex agrees to do a trial interview with Josie. Josie's past appears to be strange and complicated, but although Alex finds her unsettling, she can't quite resist the temptation to keep digging and to keep recording. I'm going to leave it there because I always think with thrillers you should go into it knowing as little as possible. But this was so good. I really, really enjoyed it. It was the unpredictability of it that I think I was enjoying, and the like, oh, I need to know what happens next. Like, I need to know what happens. And I do find Lisa Jewell writes very well. It's a very, very easy read, and this was an easy read. And the way that this is written is it also has, it's like a Netflix show that intersperses with the story. Honestly, it's so good. I really do recommend this. I don't think it's beaten The Family Upstairs. I thought The Family Upstairs was such a good book and I could not put that down. But I think this is definitely my second favourite book that I've read of Lisa Jewell now. And that is it. I could only pick 4. And like I said, 2 of them I don't really recommend. So it was a bit of a funny one. I was a bit apprehensive to film this video because it was such like a, there's not really that many, but I do film it every year and I like to be honest and just not read any like great books this year. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was helpful whether you want to read them or want to avoid them. If you have any recommendations for books, please let me know. I love thriller, I love fantasy. They are my 2 big genres, and then like drama as well. But please send your recommendations over because I really have struggled this year. If you did enjoy this video, I would love it if you could please leave the video a like, a comment, sharing and subscribing if you are new. I am really, really trying to grow this channel, and literally doing any of those things helps me massively. So I appreciate any of that. But even if you don't do any of those things, thank you so much for watching. But I shall hopefully see you in another day of Vlogmas.